Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about some of the positions of Sheikh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah that were in opposition to that of the Hanabila and al-Imam Ahmed radiyallahu anhu. And I'm taking this from a dars or a lesson from our beloved Sheikh Faris bin Fala al-Khazraji al-Mawsili al-Hanbali, and specifically this is one of the darses, and you can find this on his YouTube page inshallah. It's called Mذهب al-Hanabila al-Aqdi بين al-Hanabila والدعاوى. So the madhab of the Hanbalis in Aqidah, between the Hanbalis and the da'wah, meaning those people who are related to the so-called da'wah Salafiyya or Wahhabiyya. And specifically, as we said, the dars is talking about some of the opposing positions of Sheikh al-Islam rahimahullah with regard to sifaat. So this is his opinion on the al-Muhkam and al-Mutashaabah, or the clear and the unclear, and specifically the issues he has in opposition to the Hanabila are with regards to the unclear verses. And Sheikh Faris, he mentioned an important point that for the words of any scholar, they have a reality, and that reality is on the intention of the author, of the one who said that. So it's our job as students of sacred knowledge that we need to find what the author or the one who said these things actually meant, specifically with regards to the Salaf, as we are Hanabila, so we need to find what the Salaf have said. So I will start inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم علمنا بما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وإنك على كل شيء قدير. قال شيخنا مولانا فارس al-Khazraji al-Mawsili al-Hanbali حفظه الله. So first, Sheikh Faris, he began the dars by just mentioning some of the books of Usool. And these are the books of Usool that are, we're looking at them because these are the books that are defining what are the muhkam and the mutashaabih. So once again, in case you're new to these terms, muhkam is something that's clear, and mutashaabih is something that's unclear. So specifically in the books of Usool, they mention or they define the muhkam as واضح المعنى, so having clear meaning, or لا يحتاج إلى البيان, or not requiring further description or explanation. And this has been mentioned likewise by many of the early scholars, including Ibn Aqil, al-Kalwadhani, Ibn Qudama, and others going up into our time. So we define the muhkam as لا يحتاج إلى البيان, or not requiring an explanation, whereas the mutashabih are described as ما يحتاج إلى البيان, or what requires an explanation. So the opposite of al-muhkam. And with regard to the sifaat, this applies to several verses of the Quran which mention a sifaat. I think you may know some of them, but for example, بل يداه مبسوطتان and ويبكى وجه ربك. So these are two of the famous verses that mention the mutashabih, or unclear sifaat, or unclear attributes. So Al-Qadi Abu Ya'la has defined in Ibtal al-Ta'wilat, his famous book, the mutashabih are those which are not known by language. and at-Tamimi mentioned in I'tiqad al-Imam Ahmed that the mutashabih, their meaning is not known. So what do we mean more about the mutashabih and its meaning? Sheikh Faris said, the mutashabih is something that is ishtirak al-lafzi. Ishtirak al-lafzi means sharing a word. So it's basically a word that has more than one meaning. And when we talk about the sifaat, or sifaat of Allah, specifically it has, we can say, an apparent meaning, which would be the sifaat or the attributes of the makhluqeen or created things, and the actual sifa or attribute of Allah, which we don't know what it means. So some people, especially in modern times, and especially those people attributed to this da'wah, they deny this position. But the reality is, as we've seen, this was a position that existed before Ibn Taymiyya. That's why all of these scholars that we've mentioned, like Ibn Aqil, Kalwadani, Ibn Qudama, and others, they were all those who proceeded before Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. Another important thing to understand on the ta'wil or interpretation of the sifat or attributes of Allah is in the verse قال تعالى وما يعلم تأويله إلا الله وراسخون في العلم. So this is the famous verse where it says that, and this is talking about the sifat, its interpretation is not known except by Allah, and the rasikhuna fil ilm, those are those people given knowledge. So for the Hanabila, when we read this verse, we have waqifun wajibun, meaning a obligatory stopping after the word Allah. So وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهِ, that's a stop. وَرَاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ. So the وَرَاسِخُونَ, the wa, which is generally translated as and, here it's not the and of atf or connecting two things, but this is the wow or the and of al-istinaf, which is like just introducing a new idea. So we don't attach those rasikhuna fil ilm, those people that are given knowledge, to the previous sentence, which if we do, it has the meaning that Allah and those people know the ta'wil of the sifat. But as we said, we have waqif wajib, and this isn't just something that we've come up by ourselves, but in fact, with regards to the rules of recitation of this verse, this was also the statement of Ibn Abbas and Aisha radiallahu anhum. So going back to the time of the Sahaba, this is how it's read, and this is how it should be understood, that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the ta'wil or the interpretation of the sifat. Sheikh Faris, he mentioned that some of the tabi'een, they went against this recitation and they didn't have the obligatory stop there. So that's why we see there are some recitations that have been related to us where there's no stop. But as we mentioned, Ibn Abbas and Aisha radiallahu anhuma, they mention the stop, and you don't have better evidence than Ibn Abbas and Aisha radiallahu anhuma. So in addition to this, Abu al-Khattab, he mentioned that from the riwayah or narration of Ibrahim, which is one of the students of al-Imam Ahmed, he said that Imam Ahmed said that the mutashabih are ma ya'lam ta'wilahu illallah. He used this verse to explain what the mutashabih or the unclear verses are. So the unclear verses are those that their interpretation is not known except by Allah. And this is a quote from Imam Ahmed. And Imam Ahmed is one of the Salaf, and he's narrated from other Salaf. So what he says, we have certainty in it with regards to the interpretation of the verse. So we've mentioned that this is the position of al-Imam Ahmed and the Salaf. So Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah, he did not come until the 7th century Hijri. So this is long after the time of the Salaf. So he has also talked more about the sifaat with regard to this verse in his Mujmu' al-Fatawa, or his compilation of his Fatawa. And I'm going to try to summarize it here. And sorry, I should have mentioned this in the beginning, but I mean, this is kind of just a summary of the dars of Sheikh Faris. I'm obviously not translating everything he said word for word, because it was over an hour long and this would be a very big undertaking, but it's just kind of a summary. And likewise here, I'm trying my best to summarize or to translate what Sheikh Faris read from Mujmu' al-Fatawa, Ibn Taymiyah, but a few parts might be kind of summarized. So Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyah, he said, regarding including the names and sifat or attributes of Allah and the like of them under the verse وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهِ, or its interpretation is not known except by Allah, or if he thinks that there are those who know its interpretation through their knowledge, each group of them are from our companions. So basically he's saying both interpretations of the verse that we mentioned, the correct one and the incorrect one, are of our companions, meaning the Hanabala. And the Hanabala are only a reflection of the Salaf. We're just taking what the Salaf have brought us. But as we said, that's not correct. Rahimahullah, it's not a correct statement. Now, his student, Ibn Muflih, this is Shamsuddin Ibn Muflih, the author of Kitab al-Furu'. He was a student of Ibn Taymiyah. He said that regarding the mutashabih, he said they are from the mushtarak al-lafzi, which we said are sharing, it's like two meanings, sharing a word. And some of our companions say otherwise, or say the opposite. And this was referring to Ibn Taymiyah, his teacher. Now, the first thing he mentioned is the mu'tamid, the relied upon position of the madhab. And it's also interesting, maybe from Bab al-Adab, or from the perspective of good manners, he didn't mention Ibn Taymiyyah by name, but he did allude to the position or mention the position. So going back to what Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah mentioned in Majmu' al-Fatawa, just to continue, he said regarding the mutashabih, that no one knows its meaning. He said he didn't hear that related from the Imams, meaning the Imams of the Salaf, or Ahmed bin Hanbal, which Sheikh Faris said, يعني فيه نذر. And this is something, it needs investigation. Because Sheikh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he himself has related that statement that we mentioned earlier from Ibrahim. He's mentioned that statement. And we will talk, he does also talk more about that statement, but you know, it's possible that there may have been some reasons he thought that narration was not strong, but regardless, he's going to talk more about it. So just to refresh or summarize what we just said, Ibn Taymiyyah didn't believe in the wuquf, or the stopping in the verse that we mentioned. So because he didn't believe in that stopping, he was attaching the rasikhun fil ilm, or those people that are given great knowledge, he's attaching those people to Allah who know the ta'wil, or the interpretation of the sifaat. Now, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he also mentioned the narration of Ibrahim in his book Rad al-Jahmiyyah, but he said that it's غير ظاهر, or it's not apparent. He's saying there's still something wrong with the meaning. So once again, to say that apparent meaning is not what it means is something that needs evidence. And we can't submit to Shaykh al-Islam's statement despite him being Shaykh al-Islam when we have centuries of scholars that are relating otherwise. So there's a lot of evidence in the madhab. As we mentioned, we can look at any book of usool, find any book in usool that says otherwise. We talked about what several of the books mentioned, and these are the early books, and these are the books that predate Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. We can look at what all the Imams said. And when I say the Imams, I mean, we can go even farther back. If you think about what was related on al-Istawa from al-Imam Malik and Salama, these are very early statements that even predate al-Imam Ahmed. So likewise, we can look at what the Hanabila have related about this verse, وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. So they all agree that that's a obligatory stopping there. We don't attach the rasikhun fil ilm to Allah. And Sheikh Faris, he said, Ibn Taymiyyah has no sanad in the madhab for this opinion. You can't find anybody in the madhab that has this opinion. So now we're going to be shifting into the last part of the dars, which is talking about a particular statement that was related from Hanbal. And Hanbal is one of the relatives of Imam Ahmed, who was one of the important people who narrated the madhab. So on this part, I am going to summarize a bit more because it's kind of a deep subject, and maybe what Sheikh Faris was mentioning here, maybe he was mentioning to an audience that he thought they had quite a good knowledge about this. But regarding Hanbal, he did give a comment on one of the narrations of Hanbal, one of the things that Hanbal narrated from al-Imam Ahmed, where he related that the al-Maji, or literally what would in a literal Arabic mean the coming of Allah meant His qudra. And Abu Ishaq said that there's no doubt that this is a mistake from Hanbal, but rather what he, meaning al-Imam Ahmed, said was that it was the that or the essence of Allah. So Sheikh Faris went into some, other examples of narrations from Hanbal, but he summarized, and this is, I think, the best thing for us to do here, regarding mistakes in narration of the madhab. We, not even Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, should discuss refutation of some of these narrations. That was something that was done in the very early stage of the madhab, and I don't even know how it would be done in a later stage. That's something, it can't happen now. And a'udhu billah, this was a door, maybe it got barely opened here, but Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, he really opened this door till he had some kind of delusional statements saying that, most of the Hanbali madhab is going against to what al-Imam Ahmed said. How does he know this? I don't know. He never gave any evidence. It's just something delusional, delusions from misguidance. So we ask Allah to protect us from that. Ameen. So if we can summarize the correct position on the sifaat, we can say that first we agree or we establish that the sifaat have a meaning. We are not of the people who deny they have a meaning. We also affirm that the meaning is not the apparent meaning, which is kind of the position of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. We establish that the meaning is other than the apparent meaning. So there's a second meaning. This is the mushtarak al-lafzi. And this meaning is not known to us. It's only known to Allah, as what was mentioned in the verse, وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. So Hanbal had a famous riwayah or narration where he mentioned that Imam Ahmed, talking about the sifaat of the mutashaabih, the unclear sifaat, that he said, La kayf wa la ma'na. It's a very famous statement from al-Imam Ahmed. So those mukhalifin al-Hanabila, or those people who are in contradiction to the Hanbalis, you hear them only mention Ibn Taymiyyah and his student Ibn Qayyim. So they're only mentioning these two because if we go to the riwayah, what's been mentioned from al-Imam Ahmed and from other Salaf, we don't have this meaning of a Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. So regarding this narration, La kayf wa la ma'na, which literally means no how and no meaning, as we said, discussing the unclear attributes, sifat al-mutashabih, we have to note that all of the ulama of the madhab, the Hanbali madhab, except this riwayah, this narration, except Ibn Taymiyyah and his student. So as Sheikh Faris said, كُلُّهُمْ نَقَلُوهَا بِقَبُولٍ. All of them related with acceptance. The interesting thing is that Ibn Taymiyyah has related this narration. He's related it in a way in support of his views and also in a way of refuting tafweed. So in one narration from Ibn Taymiyyah, he said that what the verse means, la kayf wa la ma'na, means we don't alter it, meaning the meaning with ta'wil, so an interpreted meaning. So by saying no meaning just means that we're not doing ta'wil. But did anyone other than him from the madhab, especially before him in the madhab, say this? We can't accept it if he alone has said it, and it's contrary to what his own forefathers said. And Sheikh Faris, he really wanted to emphasize this point. He was really emphasizing that we pay attention to this. He said, the strange thing is that Ibn Taymiyyah rejected this narration, La kayf wa la ma'na, from Hanbal, that all of the Hanbalis accepted in Usool. So in Usool, all the Hanbalis accepted this narration, both accepted it as authentic and accepted it as in meaning. But in Furu', he has rejected one of Hanbal's narrations. He accepted one of Hanbal's narrations that the majority of the Hanabala, all the Hanabala, had rejected. So this was something that was mentioned by al-Mardawi rahimahullah with regard to the Ahl al-Dhimma, the people of the Dhimma, giving witness for each other as being accepted. And this is despite the fact that Khalal and Ghulam al-Khalal rejected this. So the thing that all the Hanbalis accepted in Usool from Hanbal, a particular narration, he's accepted it. He's rejected it. And the thing that all the Hanbalis in Furu' had rejected from Hanbal, he's accepted. So in Al-Insaf, al-Mardawi rahimahullah, regarding that statement on the witness of the Ahl al-Dhimma, he said, هَذَا غَلَطًا لَا شَقٌّ فِيهِ. So that's a mistake, there's no doubt about it. And this is someone who's relating himself from Hanbal. So why did Ibn Taymiyyah have this strange position? We can't accept these opinions that are contrary to the madhab unless we have evidence. And evidence would be in riwayat or narrations. So al-Imam Ahmed, he never said that yad of Allah is this or wajh of Allah is this. You can't find any evidence that's coming with this meaning. The reason to answer why did Ibn Taymiyyah have this opinion, especially this strange, we can say opposite rejection of these two narrations of Hanbal, is because of the verse where he thought, yes, rasikhun fil ilm, with Allah, know the ta'wil of the mutashaabih. Now, Sheikh Faris also mentioned the strange thing is that this narration, La kayf wa la ma'na, from Hanbal, isn't from the mufradat, isn't from the sole narrations. It's also mentioned by Marudi, and Ibn Battah mentions it in his book Ibana al-Kubra. So, as Sheikh Faris said, this is something from the wadihat. This is something from the very clear things of the madhab, where there aren't a dispute in. We're not finding these smaller issues where people are fighting over. No, this is a very clear thing in the madhab. So, regarding what some people are calling us or how they're attacking us, they call us al-Hanabila al-Judud, the new Hanbalis. as opposed to the old, authentic Hanbalis. They're al-Asha'ira, the tale of the Asharis. And they start to also make statements like al-Imam Ahmed, he wasn't mufawwad. He was doing instead what Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah was doing. Or when maybe they have a hard time refuting that this isn't the Hanbali position and Hanbalis are mufawwad, they start to say things like, well, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he wasn't a Hanbali. He was an absolute mujtahid. Whatever things they want to say about us, about al-Imam Ahmed and the Salaf, about Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, they can say it. That's between them and Allah. But if you want to go to positions in the deen, we need evidence. They should come with ruwaya, with narrations, with some chain of transmission. They're always talking about ruwaya in fiqh, for any position they have, they're throwing out hadith. But for aqeedah, they should also come with the evidence. That's all we ask. So, الدليل عند السلف وليس عند السلفية المعاصرة. The evidence is with the Salaf as-Salih. It's not with these modern Salafis. This isn't what Sheikh Faris said. This is just what I'm summarizing. But mashallah, I found that this was a very beneficial dars. If you understand Arabic, I think you can find the dars on Sheikh Faris on his website. And inshallah, we ask Allah to give us beneficial knowledge, to guide us to the straight path, to guide us to the correct aqeedah, and to have mercy upon us and guide those who've gone astray. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een.